Yeah, hello. It's Juho Webselainen from React Finland, and this time we will focus on the topic of design tools. About React Finland, so it used to be, or it is, quite a big conference that's usually held in Helsinki, Finland, and of course this year and last year we had to cancel because of COVID, and this year we will organize in hybrid form. And the conference takes place at the end of August and beginning of September, so it's a full week. And if you go to React-Finland FI, you can see what we're planning. And one important thing is that we have this call for papers open. So if you have a topic in mind and want to demonstrate something, go take part, and then we might add you to the program, so you can show what you have. But I think that's enough for the conference. Let's move on to the topic. So let's do a little round of introduction. So who goes first?
Well, I can go first. Hi, my name is Laura Järvinen, and I am an art teacher who became a programmer. And I work in this company called R&D Works as a programming instructor. So I do like a very low threshold, like for newbies, like all kind of training material. And I also host workshops. But of course, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do as many workshops. So it's been mostly online. But we're hoping that we'll soon get back to it.
All right.
I guess we can go in the order of talks here. So hi, everybody. My name is Margot. I'm a software engineer at a company called Nidar, which is one of the sponsors of the conferences. I am here to talk about design ops, as I call it, design ops cocktail. As my day job, I work right now on a full stack Clojure project, which is quite interesting and exciting. And there's going to be a little bit of Clojure in my talk. Hopefully that's not going to scare you away, but rather get you more interested. Hello, Yuhis, by the way. I can see him in the comments. That's my former colleague. I really like him. Cool. Yeah, so I guess that's very brief about me.
Yeah. Lazar.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Lazar Nikolov. I'm a software engineer from North Macedonia. I also fiddle with design. During the day, I am a partner and a designer/developer at CodeCamp. And during the night, I am a core member and a developer advocate at Chakra Ui. So today, I'm going to rebuild some cool UIs with Chakra Ui. It's going to be fun. And I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that sounds great. So before we go to the first demonstration by Laura, maybe we can discuss design tools a little bit. So what do you use in your work? So when you have to make an app, what kind of tools do you prefer to use to design it? Or do you go straight to code, or what's your approach?
I use Figma because it's free and it's online. So that's the tool.
Makes sense.
Yeah, me too. But also for some projects, I used Framer because sometimes I do like to code my animations and stuff, and Framer allows me to do that. But mostly Figma.
Yeah, I guess Laura uses Figma as well, right? Because we have demonstration about Figma, so or.
Yeah, if I would be using, I don't do design in my work, but if I would be, I think I would be using Figma as well.
Right. So I mean that brings us to the next question: how do you bridge Figma with the code? So let's say, how do you keep them up to date? So you make some nice design in Figma, and then you go and implement the design. And maybe you have to change something in the design because you notice that it doesn't fit or it's different on mobile or so. How do you deal with this problem?
I will be talking about it, so I don't want to spoil anything. So I can't talk about it.
Great. So we'll see you later. Yeah. So because that's sort of when I was working with Figma, that was my problem. Like we had a nice design in Figma, then I go and implement, and then I implement something more, and then it's out of date. But yeah.
I've heard of the DS framework, but I still haven't used that one. I know that does give you some automation abilities to, extract design tokens and then spit out an NPM package or an Android or iOS native packages. So you can basically do that automation, but I still haven't used that. So yeah, manual updating.
Yeah, I see. So then there's solutions like Tailwind. So what I'm thinking, maybe you can have a design tool that emits Tailwind tokens, and then you will sort of go with that. Oh, yeah, no. Okay, forget I said anything about Tailwind because it's a secret. All right. Maybe we should move to the first demonstration so we don't spoil too much. Do you want to go ahead, Laura? We can share your screen.
Yes, let's do this. Okay, I'm gonna move this one to the other window, and then I'll just show you this one.
Yeah.
Okay, you can see my screen now?
Yes. Here we go.
Okay.
So.
All right. So here is Figma, and the topic of my talk is well, I'm like, if there are some people here watching this who are interested in design but don't really know how to start to do it, or like don't really know what would be the best like prototyping or design tool. And I haven't really used Figma a lot, only like dabbled in it a bit, but because of my background in as an art teacher, I have tried a lot of like Adobe programs or software, and like I tried to use mockups. I tried to use Adobe XD, and then once I had this one cool presentation of like how to use Figma, and I was completely sold, and I thought that it felt very quick, easy, and I'd even go as far as saying like intuitive. And because it's free and it's online, so it's super handy. So like I'm all for like go for Figma. All you need for Figma, there is a paid version, and then there is the free version. And a lot of the things that you can do with the free version are like most of the things you can do with the free version. So just a register, and that's all you need. And what I'll be doing now is a small design thing. And then I'll try and even go as far as like, I'm going to show you a few plugins that I think are asked around that are really useful. And then also do even a small prototyping thing, because I always think it's cool that you can do the prototyping. That's where the design comes alive. But here I'm going to start with this is an empty, let's hide this one. Yeah. Let's start with the actual, it's just a blank canvas. And then I'll put a frame. And then over here, we have all these presets of like what width we would like to go for. And I always think this is easy. I'm going to go with like, because of this being a short demonstration, I'm not going to do like a full page. I'm just going to go for like an app. And this is going to be very rudimentary because I don't want it to take too much time. And here I want to start with some kind of background for it. And I went to saddle patterns from TopTile. If you're not used to, I always love like sharing these tips and tools. And I only recently found out about it. You might have known about it for years. But I found this one that I really liked. So I'm going to use that. And instead of the fill, instead of the solid, I'm going to use an image. And then I will be choosing the image. I already downloaded it here. So it will be the watercolor one. And I will be putting that here. So now we have a nice background. If I want to change anything to this, like all of these things are easy to handle here, and none of them are like actually changing the image itself, so they're not. You don't have to worry about messing up or changing the image. They're not touching it. They're just like showing it in a different way. Okay, and here let's put. I want to show you a few cool things that I thought that were super cool. And these are not the only cool things, but there are a few of them. So I'm going to start with a, this is a rectangular shape. Yeah, because there we have frames and then we have shapes. And in this shape, I can then put some text. And I thought that I would be doing like a small, let's go, I'm not sure if I should go with desserts or flowers. Maybe we'll go with flowers. So we'll put flower options. And then here I can very easily, by the way, do I need to, I don't know if you can see it any better.
Yeah, well, looks good. I mean, you can make it a tiny bit bigger and then it's fine.
Just realized it now. I haven't shown anything in quite some while, so, well, I'll do it soon. Okay, so here I already have a nice font going on. I might go for a bold version of it, and then I can very easily also change the size of it. So let's go with that, for example. Okay, now I'm gonna put this slightly smaller, and I'm actually gonna make this the rectangle, and I'm gonna make it hidden so you don't see it. Okay. And then I'm gonna make a few cards that would be showing a few options for those and for those flowers, because we have the flower options. And now I'm gonna go a little bit, zoom in a little bit, and if you hold Control and then you roll with your mouse scroller or roller, and then you can zoom in very easily. And then when you hold down the space bar, that's when you can grab it and hold it. And over here, there's a lot of like neat things. Like over here, you can move you can grab onto this and you can change the radius so you can get the rounded edges. And as someone who's like tried to get rounded edges using some old Adobe programs earlier, like 10 years ago, I was like, oh, so easy, so nice. So, but yeah, so I wanted to show that as well. And then I want to change the color for this, and I might go for one of the colors here in the background. And I can change the opacity a little bit so that you can see a little bit of the pattern behind it. And then I can even do some effects like a drop shadow. And if I want to change the drop shadow settings, that's also very easy. I feel like a lot of these things are just super easy to find. You don't have to go and find like spend a lot of time where can you go looking for, where can you get them. Okay, so here we have one of these cards. And now one of the things that I really liked about Figma is that it's so quick to do things. And like, because I remember like some other programs, I've been like trying to like, I've got one thing and I've been like using like 10 minutes to try and get it exactly the way I want. And then I have to like hold on to it very dearly, and like, God forbid if something happened to it because it took such a long time to make it. But here you can very easily like copy a lot of the whole, I'm sure that when you see like Lazar using this, and he'll just probably be like super quick and he'll be like, oh, But here, if you hold on Alt, then you can get a copy of the same thing. So super easy to copy the whole. I could actually, right now, I'm gonna copy the whole. There I can copy and now have 2 frames, and we're gonna go back to this in a little bit. And one of the nice things is that if I make these cards, I can like kind of just put them here. And then one of the nice things is that it's so easy to put them in like right orders. Maybe I'm actually gonna lock the rectangle and the flower options there because I only want to choose these here. And then there's this nice thing called tidy up, and now it puts them where I want them. Now, if I move these like this, it'll change all of them at the same time. But this is not the only way how you can make changes to many like elements at the same time. So now we have these cards, but there is one other option which is nice, which is what you can make these. You can make them into components. But before I make this into a component, I'm gonna add something else to it. So I'm gonna put an image. So I'll take an ellipse tool and make a round image like that. And then now here comes one of the first plugins. The plugins are very easy to find and get from the community. And here you have Unsplash, which I'm sure people are familiar with at this time. And now we'll go with flower bouquet. Yeah, bouquets. And I can, well, maybe let's go with this one. And now it filled it in over there. So it's like bringing in images, like high quality images, is super easy. This is not the only way how you can do it, but this is I wanted to show how to use how to easily use the Unsplash plugin. Okay. Now I can choose both of these, and I can create a component. And as React viewers or users, you probably know what a component is and what's the nice thing about components. So now if I copy these and I have the original over here, and now if I make changes to this one, it makes changes to all of them at the same time. So this is very cool. But if I make changes to one of them, which is not the original component, then it only changes that one. So probably like you're all very familiar what components are and what do they do, but I think it's very nice that we can also have them over here in the design sense. Okay, I'm gonna tidy these up, and now I'm looking at the time, so I'm not gonna add any more text in this one. So I'm just gonna change the images for these. Let's go for, that looks like no, sorry, put it in the wrong place. I had to choose the actual, there we go, the actual image there. It's interesting to see how much slower my computer is now that I'm like sharing the screen at the same time. So, okay, that one is a nature. Let's put some plants in it. Yeah, there we go. And then put another plant. Okay. So here. Now let's move on to the next screen. So here we have, this is a bit silly now because it doesn't show I'm gonna add a photo here, but it's not gonna show the same. It's actually not one of these because I previously downloaded it, but we'll just, let's just pretend that it's one of these options over here. My computer is just running so slowly and I don't wanna spend more time trying to Google and find it. So here, getting the images from using the Unsplash plugin is one option to bring the images, but you can also think of images as like fills instead of colors. So here I can go for the image, and let's see if I can actually find if it accepts the, there we go, we have flowers. Why is it not showing? There we go. It's just a bit slow, as you can see. With the image here, you can like have multiple options for it. You have a fill. One of the nice things about that I liked coming from like older options is that, like older programs, is that when you have the fill over here, as I move it and I change it, it doesn't distort the image as long as I have it in this fill form or the fill option. If I put, I I could also choose crop, and then once I've cropped it, then if I move it to change the dimensions, then it will also change them. Okay, so let's add a little bit more text, and then we'll do the prototyping thing, and then I'll go through the rest of the plugins that I really like that I haven't showed you yet, and then that'll be me done. So I will add a rectangular here, and I'll be putting it now that we have the screen, it's going to be longer than the screen actually is, and then I can also change the well, let's put it like that, and then here we go. One of the plugins that we have here is Lorem Ipsum. Oh yes, of course, I need to add some text, not just I am going to add a text layer. That makes more sense. There we go. Now add the plugins and then do the Lorem Ipsum, and then I can choose generate some other time, like whatever, how much I want it, or I can just click auto generate and it'll show how much there is, or like it'll fill the space that I gave to it. Okay, this looks a bit big. I'm just gonna make it a wee bit smaller so that the demonstration that I do is not gonna look super weird. You can use your arrow keys to make the text bigger and smaller, which is one of those nice things that like I for one really appreciate. I'm gonna add some more text so that the demonstration will actually look like something. Okay. Now we have flower options. Let's just put here, instead of flower options, I'm gonna write back to the flower options so that it actually makes some sense. What's written here. Like that. Okay. So here is this very simple. This looks very bad, but my computer is very slow and I don't want to take too much time. So let's just take it as it is. Here we have the prototype part. And now I can, if I choose a starting frame, let's choose this one and let's pretend that it's the same bouquet as in here. And I can choose that, okay, when this one is clicked, then it's gonna open this one. And then there's some other options that you can choose with that one. And then I can choose this frame, and I can choose that, well, when that one is clicked, it's gonna go back to that one. And then I wanna add this. Choose the one with the text, and I'm going to put vertical scrolling. So that should be all that I wanted to do at the moment. And now if I put present, and wait for it to load. So now we have an actual, like, because it was an iPhone that I chose, this is an iPhone that is used for this. I can click, like, go to the other page if I want to, but I can also use, this one was the, that image was the one that we chose. And now if I click somewhere else where there isn't anything happening, it'll show me that, okay, that's where the link actually is. But because I added the vertical scroll, now you can actually scroll through this. And now we can go back to this image. And if I click somewhere where there isn't anything happening, it'll just go show that one. And you can very easily show these, like you can share these this super easily. No one, like, if for another person to view this, they don't have to be signed in for Figma. Like, at least I don't think so. I'm not completely sure. If I'm wrong here, somebody correct me. Okay, Now, before I leave the stage, I'm going to show you the other few nice plugins that I heard of. And then there's Quanify, where you can get icons, as one could imagine. So you can find, like, if you have SVG icons, you can bring them from other places as well. This is not the only place that you can use, but if you want, you can use this, and then you can change the colors and fill, like, how thick those lines are and everything like that. So that's super nice and super cool. And then there is the, well, I don't know if anyone else is interested in blobs anymore, but I like that. Lorem Ipsum we already used, Unsplash we already used, but then there's Stark. Stark is what, if you're not familiar with Stark already, this is what you can use to check how accessible your designs are. And the one designer in my company that I talked to, not the only one, but the one that I talked to, said that actually the only plugin that they used is Stark. But if there's anything else that you're interested in, that's super cool and like easy to find a lot of options there, and just find other stuff that that suits your fancy. And so far, the only thing, as I asked my colleagues, my designer colleagues, is there something that they wish that Figma would do? Like, is there something that's really grinding their gears? And the only thing that they could come up with was that it's annoying that you can't have like this, that you can't do this design and then like change the width of the design, or like so that it would have the same, like the mobile and the web page and the tablet forms in the same one. But that was the only. And there is some other options that do include that one. But other than that, they were really happy with Figma and were like, well, yeah, it's the quickest one to use. It's so easy. Like if I mess up anything, then I'll just like delete what I had and I'll whip it up again because it's so quick and easy. And that got me sold. Okay, that's all that I had planned for this.
All right, so thank you for the demonstration. That's like, and I guess we move to the discussion. I'll see if anybody has questions or comments at YouTube. So I don't have any questions yet, but I mean, I have this one question related to Figma. I mean, it looked like you do very hi-fi designs, but can you do lo-fi, like something that's ugly or not so pretty? Is it possible with Figma, or is it better to use something else for ugly designs?
Well, I feel like I don't know how pretty that one was, but like I do know that like I think that it's very easy. Like you can spend time. Like I could imagine doing some lo-fi things with that. If you're not used to another, like if you have some other option that you're like used to using, kind of like Balsamic or something. So like you might keep using that instead of like learning a new thing. But I do believe that you can just like very easily just do like, you don't have to go all the length, that you can just be like, you can just use like gray boxes and put them over there and just think like, okay, never mind the fonts or the other things. And you can even like include the interactions there if you want to. But
yeah, so Margarita has some idea.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what is actually implied by ugly designs. I'm assuming you're talking about wireframes.
Yeah, I mean designs that miss detail, that are not pixel perfect.
What I do love about Figma is that it has a pretty big community of like pre-made kits. And then there is several places where you can pretty much get a bunch of Figma files with like pre-made kits. And there is a bunch of kits where you can get wireframes, basically. So you don't even need to like make those ugly designs, right? Or wireframes yourself. You can just like copy paste it from a kit.
Sure.
So
yeah, that makes sense. So you will take a kit and then you will do your rough design with the kit. Makes sense. Oh. So let's say I wanted to learn more of Figma. What will be the way to do it? Do I just use the app and find things on my own, or do you have some resources for people wanting to learn more about the tool?
Well, I, for one, like, it depends on other people, but there's people who like to read, but then there's people who like to listen and watch other people do stuff. So I just there's a lot of YouTube tutorials, and I just like using them. I feel like there are also some paid ones, but I think that the free ones will also like they're paid courses, but I feel like you can get really far with just watching YouTube tutorials. I know that it really depends on like people, each to their own tastes. Like I have a few that I follow and I really like. I can link those, and then you can check those out. If there's someone who's like, oh, I don't know how to type this into YouTube.
No, it's fine. You can send me the links in private chat, and I will share them with people so they find them later in the broadcast.
Yeah.
And today we really have a Finnish audience because they don't ask us anything. So maybe we should move to the next demonstration or what?
I actually have a question. So the question I wanted to ask is, you showed your demo in the Figma live preview, but did you use some sort of a plugin to wrap it in a mobile phone case?
Nope.
No.
Okay. And I think it also only comes because I took the preset, which was a model of a certain iPhone. Yeah, that was an iPhone SE, I think. And so that one, just like when you show it, that's how it comes, which is like super easy. I didn't even have to think about it.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really nice. I mean, I picked up a couple of things. I don't use Figma so much, but now I know how to use it better. But I guess we move to the next demonstration by Margarita, or?
Yeah, this is going to be smooth-ish because I'm actually using Figma to demo my slides. So.
Yeah. Cool. So.
Please tell me you can see my screen.
Yeah, looks perfect.
Amazing. So, hi everybody. Today I will be talking about, well, the Design Ops site, or the way I call it, the Design Ops cocktail. And it's going to be sort of a way to get your designs done using Figma, Tailwind, ClojureScript, and dev cards. Now, obviously, it's a bit of an opinionated stack, but as I already mentioned in the beginning, the presentation name should really be how to write a lot of styles by writing as little CSS as possible. So yeah, I guess let's just dive in. How the usual design handoff would be happening if we use a standard Sketch, CSS, Storybook integration, right? Assuming you're using React.js for your application, which I think is the topic of the conference, so it's assumed to. So I assume it's safe. It's a safe bet that people have been using it before, right? So normally what would be happening is you make changes, you save a file, commit to abstract, notify dev such as me, download a file, add styles to the CSS library, so you have to fiddle with the new styles a little bit here and there, apply it to the UI component, test the UI component. As a person who's been doing quite a lot of front-end work, although I'm not a very huge fan of writing CSS and organizing CSS files, just because I feel like it's a lot of cumbersome work that requires a lot of meticulous attention. And if I can avoid that and if we can automate it, I guess I'll be very happy to do so. So back in 2018, I started hearing that design tokens catchword, right? It's been a very popularized phrase in the design front-end community. Design tokens. People pretty much only used it in the context of design systems, not as much when they were talking about just making applications. But I guess one of the best articles you can write to get this sort of smooth introduction into design tokens would be here. I've included the link to the Medium article. Essentially, these are singular values, such as hexadecimal column number or the font size or something else, like the amount of pixels in between the elements. that you can feed into whatever and create your design system or style. Then I've sort of discovered a few blogs that popularized this approach of using Figma API, which I thought was very interesting. So this article actually is really excellent in terms of explaining how to use Figma API and what are the limitations of Figma API, right? So I really, really recommend you read it. So what is happening is, instead of doing the design handoff the old way, let's put it this way, right? Because everything that is older than 6 months in tech, it's ancient, right? So we're going to use a bit of a different approach now. So instead of using Sketch, CSS, Storybook, we're going to be using Figma, Style Dictionary, Storybook. So what happens is we cut those steps. So we do not have to save file. We don't have to commit to abstract and do the downloading thingy, because now we can just make changes online, notify developers. They'll run the script that parses some of the changes via Figma API. Then we generate new classes using Style Dictionary. And we then apply those classes to our UI components. And there you go. We test them right through the Storybook. Amazing. Great. So from that, smooth, nice transition, right? Who am I? So I'm a software engineer at Nitor, and my stack has primarily been React.js, ClojureScript, Clojure, and obviously for designers, I mostly use Figma. And in Nitor, there is a lot of Clojurists, a lot of really good Clojure developers, much smarter people than me. But we all sort of have run into this conclusion that Clojure and ClojureScript, unfortunately, does not facilitate much of a CSS development. Like if you work with ClojureScript, then there is not that many shiny tools that it provides. So you have to basically just fall back on the NPM, which is great, I mean, but still. So my goal was to make my task as a software engineer as easy as possible and write as little CSS as possible as a result of that. And after some time of searching and finding stuff and sort of rehashing my philosophy around it, I finally arrived at this formula, if you will, about how to use CSS in conjunction with ClojureScript and dev cards. Dev cards, when I'm talking about dev cards, think Storybook for React.js. And in fact, Storybook has been inspired by dev cards. So it's dev cards that's the OG in here, which is a very interesting distinction. But what we're going to do first is actually not think about the changes, but first we're going to describe the UI components, make the changes, parse files via Figma API. We might use any CI tool for that, actually, to run a script. Generate new Tailwind styles, and then we test the UI component. As you can see, there is way less of the apply new UI styles and like rehash the classes. So how are we actually going to do it? Well, first, this was one of the apps that I've been doing. And this stage would be called like sketching whatever using Figma, asking yourself a lot, like, does this spark joy, right? So once you're sort of happy-ish with your components, what you're going to be doing is, instead of thinking in terms of, okay, this is like this specific font, this is this specific style, you're going to be thinking in terms of wireframes. So what are like the main things that are very unlikely to change? Think base styles, right? Something that is not your brand identity, but something that is very unlikely to change. Like, for example, the fact that the size of the title is bigger than the size of the text, right? Those type of things. Then you start basically describing them with words, and Tailwind utility classes actually are a perfect way to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to write just basically strings of class names that are inherited from Tailwind, such as block, text large, text gray, width, text normal. I actually put those in bold in here in those slides because these are the only classes that we're actually going to generate ourselves. Because as you can see here, it points to a specific font that we've been using in our application. So that's the only like piece of DAOs we actually have to do. But the rest is pretty much predefined in Tailwind. Why I think it helps is because Tailwind provides utility classes, meaning that pretty much every single class is one single line of CSS, right? So this class is display block, right? So by doing so, we don't have to maintain any of the base styles in our design system. If we have a design system, we can just delegate pretty much everything else to Tailwind, fine-tune it, and then just add the rest, which is pretty much the identity styles, right? Something that changes the color, something that changes the specific font style, but not the baseline ones. This is something you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with, well, what I did, I created a map, which is, think JavaScript objects, right? Where you just have long strings of classes. And then you just name them something like page style string. So instead of having those CSS classes with long style definitions, you just pretty much create those. And that's how you describe them to you. Then you come back to your application, and what you need to do is you need to generate the style variables, as you can see in here, of different fonts and different colors. After you sort of arrive at your visual identity, which is an important bit. And after you've done that, you can use Figma API pretty much easily to parse styles. But here is the problem. If we're trying to parse this bit, we're not going to be able to get the actual numbers, as you can see in here, right? It just doesn't show you the values of the styles, which I always thought is a bit of a shortcoming. So you need to hack it around a little bit. It might take a little bit of work, but it's going to like do the thing for you. So you create a separate, what I did here, you create a separate page, which is called styles in my case. So I created two artboards. One of them is palette, which is colors. Another one is typography, pretty much self-explanatory. And you create those rectangles with the colors. And you use the colors from the predefined palette with the variables. Same thing you do for the fonts. As you can see, I specifically renamed them so that we can use the script to parse them via the API. And what we do is a little bit of a matching. We match the name of the style to the name of the rectangle and then extract the value. This is what your Figma.js file is going to look like. This is just one bit that gets the palette. Pretty simple. You just go through the palette that you have predefined in here, extract the values, and create simple JavaScript objects, actually JSON objects out of it. And you will arrive at something like this. You might call this base JSON, you might call it anything, but you will just arrive at the file that has all of the names of the colors and values and type and styles. Now, at this stage, we can actually go into two different directions. We can either use Style Dictionary to generate CSS files or Sass files or React, whatever styles you need that Style Dictionary support, basically. But we're not going to do that because, as I said, we do want to avoid having to maintain our own CSS. So what we're actually going to do, we're going to take a Tailwind CSS library and we're going to extend it with our identity assets. Because if you think about these two, right, these two artboards, these are related to identity. They're not related to the base styles. So that's what we're going to do right now. In the Tailwind config, we're going to parse the base JSON, and we will pass the colors here to the theme extension. So we will have basically a new set of colors with the names of the colors that we have provided in here, which I think is pretty awesome. So at the end, you can pretty much do the following thing. You can sit down, just name your styles in the strings, whatever you want to. Like you can have like background, cerulean, I don't know. And then you name this style in here, cerulean, then you parse it through the text, and then you will end up with an extension in the Tailwind that supports that color. And this is what your def cards are going to actually look like. So in the def card definition, think of them as mini stories in the storybook. This is one of the cards that demonstrate the style of the component. And these are going to be your components, for example. So yeah, this is how you have managed to write a lot of CSS without pretty much writing a single line of CSS. I guess that should have been my title. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that was interesting, and I hope that was somewhat useful, guys.
Yeah, let's move to the discussion. So let's see if I get any comments from YouTube. But if I understood right, it's really impressive what you did, because then you can bridge Figma with your app. So do you have the code available somewhere so we can share with the viewers, or some resources? How would you do it if you had to do it from scratch?
A lot of code snippets are actually like in the blog post that I'm referencing, so they can sort of connect them together. So those are the most valuable for you, because the only code that are not referenced in the code references are the ones that I have on the ClojureScript side, which is probably not going to be applicable for most of the people. So I think you're going to be fine. But that was my idea of how to like fine tune it without having to do much.
Yeah. So Lazar, what do you think? Is it a viable approach for your work, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's super cool. I didn't know that actually Figma had like this amazing API where you can just pick apart the file and extract the tokens and everything, and that is like super cool without even having to download the .fig file and just move it around. And yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, the magic happens basically in extracting the tokens, right? Because you mentioned that, for example, the name and the values they're like scribbled around. They don't really give you that.
That's the only problem, because like you really need to organize your artboard in a very specific way so that you script parse them in a very specific way. Like that's, I think, the only shortcoming, because if you try to parse, like as I just shown you, like the default variable styles, like it does this dumb thing that it parses just the names, but like not the values. So like, what's the point, Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's cool that there's a workaround still.
Yeah, so it's a lot of break duct taping.
Yeah. Hacky stuff.
Yeah,
but it's
so
as you can see, I haven't written a single line of CSS in the entire process.
Yeah, that's what I figured, that Tailwind is like a DSL for CSS. So it's a layer on top of CSS, so you don't have to write CSS, or not so much. If you need something, you write the utility class. But in this approach, so let's say you make a design in Figma, and then you go to the app side. If you want to make a change in the app side, can you still get it back to Figma? So if you go and change something on the app.
I'm sorry, I don't follow the question.
No, so so I have design in Figma, then I extract it to my app. So I have the Tailwind classes. So now I have something that's in the actual application. Then the developer decides that I want to change this one button, or I want to add something. So I do it in the app, So can I get this change back to Figma to complete the loop?
That's $1 million idea.
That's a very good question. Well, it depends, because if it has something to do with the identity styles, like if we're talking about like the only like it doesn't really make much sense with the approach that I'm using to use Figma for anything rather than identity styles, right? So whether it makes sense to change it backwards from the code to Figma is a very big question for me, because like it's not supposed to be like that, you know. You're supposed to first try it in the frame, and then you sort of implement it in the code. I don't actually know whether it's possible to do it the other way around. I haven't tried it. Like that was not the use case I was interested in, so I can't address that question. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a very hard question, because it's sort of the missing thing. Because I think a lot of people want both. You want that you're able to use both tools, so because different people use different tools, but you want that they're in sync. But yeah, it's difficult with this thing, but it was still a really nice approach. But we have a first question now from YouTube. So can we explain more about dynamic designs, auto layout feature in Figma? Does someone want to show or explain more about this topic? Automatic way to create layouts or so?
I assume he's talking about orientation in the layout, right? Like when you pin something to a certain orientation, when you try to expand or squish the frame, it sort of like is pinned to a certain orientation. That's what I'm assuming the question addresses. I mean, I don't know, like explain what exactly, like how to use it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not completely clear, but I mean, one point is that in Tailwind you have gap, and I think when you use gap in you have like multiple boxes. You have a grid or so, or a flex, and then you say gap between the items. So now you sort of go against arbitrary layout, because now you want the constraint layout. You want to say you have a flex, and you said that you have multiple boxes, and then you say in Tailwind that there's a gap. So it's sort of, I think you can get into some kind of conflict with Tailwind and a design tool. It's sort of related to this. But yeah.
There's one more question actually here that I can see.
Let's move to the next one. Maybe you can get more detail on that one. But so, how easy it is to always have the design tokens synced across code bases? Should we fetch them on build time or so?
I can address the question, because in my case, pretty much the only piece of like naming that we're doing is going around identity tokens, right? So something that defines color, maybe some height, maybe typography, right? So due to that, it's very easy actually, because the rest of the tokens are coming from Tailwind. All the basic ones are coming from Tailwind, so you don't have to be worried about maintaining those. And to synchronize them, like, I mean, I would just like run that script in the CI somewhere and regenerate the names. And that would be it pretty much. Like, I'm pretty sure like if I were to make it a bit more complicated, I would regenerate the name in case the name changes, and then concatenate the strings, because we essentially just have a string, right, of the class name. So we could just regenerate them, concatenate the string, and get the new design token right there. But how to sync? That's a good question. Maybe just like have a JSON file with just like strings would actually be a good idea. So that you're just basically just parsing the JSON file with the string names. But actually, that probably would work. I mean, that's a bit of an extra step, but that probably would work all rest.
Yeah. What I learned in the past is that with configuration, what can make a lot of sense sometimes is that you have, let's say, if you use npm or some package manager, you have a single package where you maintain the configuration, and then you have the consumers, and then that one thing is changing, and the others get the update eventually, or they can update when they want. So you can sort of push these things into one place. That's sort of one way to do it. I will post a couple of links from Laura to the chat, so you can find these are like introductory or Figma videos about Figma to watch later after the session. I think we still have time for one question before we have to move to the last demonstration, if there is something in mind. Yeah, I think the audience is silent, so it means we have to get ready for the next one. Lazar, can you get ready so we can move on to your demonstration?
Okay, there we go.
Here we go. Looks perfect.
Lovely. All right. So, yeah, I'm going to be demoing Chakra UI. For those of you who don't know what Chakra UI is, it's basically, as it says here, it's a simple, modular, and accessible component library built on top of React. So think about in the terms of you have, there's been a developer that made all of these cool React components that look good and function good, and now they're free for you to use. And it has all of the, the basic ones like buttons, etc. And that's what Chakra UI is. So for today's talk, I decided to rebuild this UI. I want to give a huge shout out to Orman Clark for letting me use his design. I mean, this is just beautiful. And I think I can do this in like 15 minutes. If I don't, you guys have all of the rights to laugh at me. But yeah, I'm going to use a simple Next.js application. I've installed, let me show you guys. There we go. I have installed the Chakra packages, which also come with Emotion and Framer. There is Next, and also install the React icons package, which we're going to use, I think, one icon, but still, yeah. Yeah, so if we can see inside the pages index, we only have hello, React Finland. I already have it running. So if we go and reload, we can see just a simple text, the thing that we rendered. So I'm going to split my screen here so we can, start building it. If we go back, first I would like to initialize Chakra UI. So how do we do that? In every Next.js application, there is an _app.tsx. So every page is basically wrapped with this component. So what we can do is we can import the Chakra provider. There we go, and just wrap our component with that. If we hit save and refresh, we can see that the text changed, and that's how we know that Chakra is in effect, right? So awesome. We got it initialized. That means we can start using it inside of our app. Let's go back to the design first, so we can see. Sorry, let me zoom out so you guys can see. We can see that, for example, the layout has two sections, right? The gray section on the left and the white section on the right. And these are stacked like the left and right. If we look on mobile, then I guess this would not make sense, but we'll have to just flip the stack, right? So the minimal icons and image at the top, and then below we can set the payment details, right? So we're going to go top to bottom when building the UI, and we can just begin. I'm going to just add a little import from Chakra UI here, and as I said, these are stacked one next to another, so we can import the stack components, right? It makes total sense. So let's do that just right here. And basically what the stack is like a div with a flexbox and we get to control the direction, right? So we can say, okay, direction, and then you'll say, okay, how do we define the direction based on whether if it's a laptop or a desktop computer, or if it's a mobile? Yeah, Chakra Ui comes with a super cool responsive syntax. So we can pass an object here and say, okay, the base value should be, I guess, column, because we want to have these two, one on top of the other, right? And we also get a IntelliSense here, which is cool. And then, for example, on medium and up, so medium is a predefined breakpoint, which, by the way, everything can be changed. In that case, from medium and up, then we can say it'll be a row, right? So we can say, okay, maybe let's add the height to be like take up the whole screen, because this is like the top level index page, basically. And that would be it. This will allow us to move the children left and right and top to bottom. So and what the children would be are these two columns, basically. In this case, we can see that the layout is different. It's not horizontal, but it's vertical. So you might have guessed it, we're going to use a vertical stack. Awesome. So let's add a vertical stack here. And that means all of the items that we're going to add inside are going to be stacked one on top of the other, right? Super cool. So what do? We can define first the little spacing that we have here, right? And that can be done with props. So Chakra Ui works with the styling in Chakra Ui works with props. What we can do is, for example, okay, let's do the padding on the x-axis, right? So that's left and right. It's a shorthand operator, so you don't have to write padding left and padding right. So just a px. Chakra Ui understands that, and yeah, let's just go with 32. We can apply the same syntax, you know, the same responsive design syntax, and that would be something like this. Okay, the base one would be, I don't know, 8. Then we have a large and above would be, I don't know, 16, and then maybe an extra large screens, and then above would be 32, right? All of these numbers, they're not just like random numbers. These are basically design tokens that are already built in with the default theme in Chakra Ui. So if we were to figure out what these actually mean, there's a cool documentation in the default theme, and we can see the spacing here, right? So this in this case, for example, on extra large screens, I set the padding to be 128 pixels, right? And on large, we've set the padding to be 64, as you can see, and the base one is basically from large and below would be 32 pixels, right? So it's just super cool. There's a trick. You can multiply by 4, and you'll get what you're you'll get the value in pixels. So okay, we have the vertical stack here. Let's go back to the design. We have the vertical stack here. We are missing the vertical padding, like the top and bottom. As far as I can see, the padding is maybe different on the x-axis and the top one, so we can just separate these two, right? So what that would be, I guess it'll be half of the horizontal. Let's do that. So base would be 4, large would be 8, and then extra large would be 16, right? Just half of these values. It's something like that. And yeah, and we can see that there are space between the items here, right? Between the text, the paragraphs, the image. We can, initially when you think about how can I do this, you might think, I'm going to add a margin top on everything, but I don't know, you don't have to. You can just specify some spacing, and Chakra is going to get all of the children within that stack and add margin top of 8, which is 32 pixels for you. So you don't have to go and repeatedly add margin top, margin top, margin top. Awesome. What we need to do again is, I don't know, add an align items. So I mentioned that the stack, the vertical, horizontal, and ordinary stack is just a div with the display flex, right? So it's a flex box. That means we can use the align items, the justify content, and everything, right? So we got, we need to align the items to the flex start because by default they're centered. Okay, so that's cool and everything. And in case we are showing this on mobile, which we'll just demonstrate, we probably want to do an overflow Y, right? So on mobile, we don't want it to scroll, but on desktop or a tablet, if the image is too big and the text goes below, the screen, we would like to scroll this section only. So we can do the visible on base, like from 0 up until some point, and then a large. We can do auto, right? So if the children of the stack are taking up more height than the window itself, it's going to scroll. Otherwise, and that's from for large screen and up. Otherwise, it's not going to scroll. It's going to be just visible. Awesome. And let's set the background, because we've set the spacing, the padding, the alignment, and everything. But this has a different background, right? If I just save this, let me just copy paste this so we can see what we get. We get nothing. But if I do, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 again, and then refresh, we get nothing. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. We're going to debug this later on. Or now, let's just see. Yes. Oh, there, as you can see, here are both of the stacks. And we have them into the first stack, right? And they are basically ready to be filled. I don't know why they didn't pick up the 1, 2, 3, because I don't know, maybe it's nothing clever. There's nothing clever about it. But yeah, moving on. I want to show you guys how you can add your own colors, right? Because Chakra comes with their own colors. Like you can see all of the shades of gray, of red, orange, yellow, and they're beautiful and everything. But branding is branding, and enterprise guys would like their own color to their app. So you are tasked to define that color inside of your app built with Chakra Ui. So how do you do that? Well, that's let's see, fairly easy. We can go in our project and create a theme.ts folder, right? It's not going to be TSX, it's just going to be a TS folder file. We are going to import a cool little function from Chakra Ui called extend theme, right? So we are going to define our own theme using the extend theme functionality, and we are going to export it so we can use it, right? Extend theme basically gets the default theme and overwrites the stuff that you the stuff that you add inside. So before we actually continue, we got the theme here. Let's go to the app, to the Chakra provider, right? Because that's the provider is actually the one who accepts that theme. So we are going to import the theme from our newly created file and just append it to the provider. So theme equals theme, yeah, fairly simple. And how do we define the colors? I have them here ready, so I don't, spend some time writing hex codes. But yeah, basically the extend theme accept an object by the name of colors, right? And that's where all the colors live. Inside, we can, for example, define the background.light color, and that would be a certain hexadecimal color, which I'm going to copy paste, right? And that is the light color that we can see here, the light gray. So let's just try to use it and see if it likes us. So background would be bg.light because it has no items inside. We're not going to be able to use it. So let's just move on with the header with this guy here, and we can just go back and forth so we can make our theme a bit richer every time. I'm going to collapse this one and let's move on here. We can see this section here. So there's a heading and there's a text, right? And there's a space between them, right? So space between, of course, we can use a horizontal stack and we can set the justify content to space between, right? Let's now import that horizontal stack. Paste it in here. We're going to import the heading component, that is the big screaming text, and just the ordinary text component, which will be the price in this case, and we'll add them here. So I'm going to add the heading, which will be minimal icons by all year, and then I'm going to add the text, which will be $19, right? If we go to the app, we can see that we have the text right here, right? And that's super cool. But maybe we want to tone down the the font size a bit because it's way too big compared to the original design that the designer did. What we need to do is go back, set the font size to be, I don't know, 2XL. I don't want to think about pixels. I just want to think about some abstract values, right? And that's what I love basically about Chakra. Right, so we have the, let me just zoom this out. There we go. We can see the app is here. Now we can actually see the background color, which is nice. It's exactly what we wanted, but there's no space between these elements, right? So how we can do that? We'll say, okay, the stack's width will be full or as much as the parent will allow it. And then the justify content, we'll set it to space between. And let's see that in a bigger screen. Nope. Okay. Yeah, I know what it is. The image is missing here. But yeah, basically, oh, okay, we wanted to add a flex. Okay, guys. Yeah, flex is something that is a property that can be applied to any element that is child to a flex parent. And by setting the value from 0 to 1, you can basically say how much of the space are you willing to take, right? If we have two children with the flex of 1, they will both get equal space. And that's what we want in this case, right? So we'll say, okay, if we're on mobile, then we don't want any fight between these components because we are just scrolling through them. But if we are on medium and then larger screens, that means tablets and above, we want this to have a flex value of 1. And we're going to add the same thing to this vertical stack, right? And you immediately saw that something changed here. There we go. So both of these items are, both of these sections get equally divided space, right? And that's cool. If we try to, cut the space, we can actually see the space between, right? These items is also being decreased. Okay, so let's just move on. We got that. We got the header, and we'll add the image. I'm not going to build a carousel because we don't have time for that. I'm already a little behind, but I'm just going to use a dummy image that I got from Unsplash. So I'm going to cheat. So here's the URL of the image, and we're just going to go down, import the image component, right, from Chakra UI, and below this horizontal stack, we're going to set, okay, here's the image. It's a self-closing tag. The source will be the iPhone image that we defined. The width will be full or as much as the parent would allow it. And if you guys can notice, the edges are rounded, right? It's very smooth. So we can also do rounded equals XL. I don't know how many pixels is that. I don't even care. It's pretty much just like the original design. If I wanted to be super precise about it, of course, I can always, define my own values, define my own design tokens, as I mentioned here in the extend theme file inside of that function. But yeah, for now, we're happy with this, right? Okay, moving on. We have a lot of texts here. So what we can do, below the image, of course, use the text component. And I'm just too lazy to copy, just too lazy to write this. So I'm just going to copy paste it. If we go back, boom, there we go. It's the text, and if you guys can see, I don't add any spacing between these between the elements, on purpose, because we have the spacing of 8. If we didn't have that, I would have to say, okay, we have the horizontal stack, then I'm going to need to add a margin top to this image, and then I'm going to say margin top to the text as well, and after a while you just, you can miss it. You'll definitely miss it, then you'll never find it. So in order to do that, we at Chakra added this prop called spacing, and it solves all of our headaches. Awesome. Let's move on. So we can see that there's we're just gonna skip this one. 3 different color sets, right? Black, white, and pastel. This is an icon, and we can clearly see that it's a list, right? A list of color sets. Awesome. So let's just make this look prettier and import what? Of course, list, and then a list item, because we're going to be building a list. So let's go down. Let's add that list. We'll do a spacing of 2. Of course, there's spacing of lists between these things. And let's just write the available, or like 3 different colored sets, right? That is the top level. And now the black, white, and pastel, we can, for that, we can just define available colors. It's going to be just an array of colors. So black, white, and pastel. Amazing. And we can just look through them. Available colors.map. There we go. We can get the color, and in return, we can return a list item. The key will be color, of course. Never forget the key prop in React. And what do we have inside? We will have a horizontal stack, because these are stacked horizontally with an icon, and then the text that comes from the color. So let's just do that. Horizontal stack. We'll set the spacing to be 2, nothing much, and align items to be center, because the icon is a bit taller than the text itself. So let's import the icon now, right? And I mentioned that we installed the Chakra UI icons package, so we can just do that. I'm going to import the arrow forward icon from Chakra UI icons package, right? And I'm going to set the icon, closing tag, the icon as an arrow forward icon. And then what I have the text, which is color, which we already have. If you go back to the design, yeah, that's it. We have the 3 different color sets: black, white, and pastel. Awesome. If we wanted to make the list a bit narrow, maybe we can just say maybe 1 or even 0. Yeah, depending on your liking, you can just play around with it. Awesome. What do we have next? Here's a quick guide on how to apply them. Nice. So let's just go below the list, right? We'll add a little text. Here's a quick guide on, and then we have a link right here. So of course, we can import the link as well and do the link here. I'm just going to set the href to be a hashtag for now. What else do we have? How to apply them. That's basically the link, and the dot is not colored. And now we have this color, right? I can say the color would be purple.500, right? And if we go to the app, we can see, but it's not really that, it's not really close. It's not really that. We want the the very same color that the designer used. So what do we do about that? Of course, just like we defined the light gray background, we can define our brand color. Okay, so inside of the colors, I'll just paste this. Right, so these are hexes that I generated from Themira. I can send you guys a link later, but you basically give the 500 shade, and it generates all of these, the lighter and the darker versions of it. So also we have the brand color registered, right? That means we can use it. Instead of purple 500, we can say use the brand color, because that's the newest. And if I save it, I'm not sure you can notice this, but yeah, basically it changed. So now it's the brand color, right? Awesome. All right, so and we are pretty much done with the first design, right? The first section. So now we can go ahead, oh boy, and start with the second one, right? We can collapse the first stack, and this is going to be a fun one because there's a lot of inputs. And here we are in the second vertical stack. So what do we do here? Again, let's place the heading component. So payment details, right? The font size, we said it's going to be 2XL because the default one is like way too big for this. Let's add a text: complete your purchase by providing your payment details. Awesome. And then we have this thing right here. It has a label, it has an input, and it looks pretty cool, right? So luckily Chakra Ui comes with a form control component that we can use, and that form control also has a form label, right? And for this example, we do need an input. Awesome. So let's use that one. We're going to just add a form control here, do the form label, and the form label will say email address, right? And then we'll have an input here. The placeholder will be luke@skywalker.com, right? In this case, it's the text. It's not a placeholder, but let's name it the placeholder. And if you can see, there's a really tiny little shadow. If I don't edit, here's what we have. Right, here's the input. Write stuff inside, but let's just add a shadow as well. Yeah, it's super tiny, but it makes all the difference. And yeah, even if we click on the label, you know, Chakra Ui has all of these hooked up, so you are pretty much good to go, right? Awesome. All right, so if you can see, the outline is blue here, but on the design it uses that brand color, right? And it would totally make sense for us to use the brand color. So there's a super cool way to go about it. Not only colors, but Chakra Ui can also handle component overrides, right? So we can go to the theme, just move the colors because we are pretty much done with them, and we can do the components object here, and inside you can override each component with its default props, with the base style, with the you can add more variants, right? So if you have some custom variants and styles and everything, etc. So for this thing, we are looking to override the outline, so of the input, right? So we'll just do input. We'll do variants, and the default variant is the outline variant, right? Because this is a multi-part component, we want to override the fields, and inside we can write the actual behavior, right? So when we are focused on these fields, we want to change the border color to be the brand 500, right? Whichever that is. We want to have a ring, right? That little blue border is called a ring. We want to have a ring of 3 pixels, and the ring color will be brand 500 as well. Awesome. So so this is it, right? If we go we have successfully overridden that little piece right there, right? Maybe 3 pixels is like way too much, so let's just tone it down to 2. Awesome. All right, so this doesn't really scream, but it looks really good. Awesome. We can, and basically what we do here is just overwrite all of the inputs for us. So let's proceed with the second one, and you'll see that we don't actually need to care about it, right? So let's just make the card holder name first. Card holder name, the placeholder will be Luke Skywalker, right? If we go here, here's the card holder name, and here's the input with that brand color. Awesome. You know, we didn't do a lot of stuff, and yeah, as Margot said, we wrote a single line of well, it's not really a single line, but yeah, if you consider this as CSS, then we wrote 3 lines of CSS, and we have this. Awesome. All right, so let's proceed, guys. Let's do the card details now. Okay, so it's going to be form control again. The top part will be card details, but then we have all of these, you know, cool stuff. We have an image, and then we have all these inner inputs, right? And of course, we wanna achieve them. And since we are grouping things together inside of an input, right? That means we need to import the input group, right? Of course, it only makes sense, right? So instead of this input in the card details, we are going to add the input group element here. And there's a lot of stuff. Okay, so we can see the icon is on the left, right? It's the left element, and we need to import something, and you guessed it. That would be the input left element. Awesome. Input left element. So let's just go and add it. So input left element, right? That would be our icon here. So we are going to import the icon as well. But yeah, by default, we want to have the pointer event set to none, because if we click the icon, we don't want to click the icon, but the actual input that's below that icon, right? So pointer events none, you don't exist, you just look pretty, and that's it. We want to set the color to be, I don't know, like gray 300 maybe, and then we want to set the children. The children is what's going to live inside of the left element, right? So yeah, I mentioned that we installed the React icons package. So let's import the React icons / hero icons hi, and import the outline credit cards icon. Awesome. So let's go down, add this little icon, click save, and let's see what we have. Okay, we have the icon, but we have nothing behind it. Why? Because we don't have an input, of course. So let's just add an input here. What do we say? Well, let's say max length, because it's a credit card. Let's say the max length will be 16, and the placeholder, right, will be your card number. And of course, don't forget the shadow. And there we go. We can see that there's the icon. If we click the icon, the actual input gets selected, and it also respects the icons, right? So it's not totally behind the icon, right? So we can write our card details here, and that's not my card info, but yeah. Let's proceed. On the right side, we have these little things, and we can see that there are 3 inputs, right? For the month, for the year, and for the CBC. And because they sit on the right, we do need to import the input right element. Of course, it's like very predictable. Let's add it, input right element. Now we are going to mess things up in here because, yeah, it's not really simple. It's a complex. It's like an input inside of an input. But you guys will see how cool it is at the end. So we'll want to do the minimum width of this to be 28. That's like a sign token, as I mentioned, and let's add the children. So this will be a layout itself, right? As we can see, the children are one next to each other, of course. Horizontal stack, right? We are going to take up the whole space, and we'll just add a spacing of 1 just to, I know, to put some space between them. And inside then we have the first input, right, which is the month's input. So the width will be 7. The variant will be unstyled. And this is important because if we don't set the variant to unstyled, then the input for the month, the year, and the CVC will have a border around it. But that's clearly something that we don't want to show, right? So let's just add a placeholder. Sorry, what are we writing? Placeholder will be month, and then the max length will be 2, and also max now. Let's say just like 12. All right, because it's a month value. Awesome, we got this. Then we have a little text, right? So we're going to use a little text for the slash thingy. Let's place it here. Set the color to, I don't know, gray 300 maybe, and that's it. Oh, sorry. Let's go back, and there we go. So you guys can see, how it comes up. Awesome. We have the year input and the CVC. So coming up next is the input again. That would be for the year, and it's pretty much the same, right? So we'll just copy the style and change this to year. Right, and let's just say, I don't know, the maximum would be 35, right? So we have the year, and the last one is the input. The last one is the CVC. Again, pretty much the same thing, except we'll make this a bit bigger, just a tiny bit bigger, like wider, because it has 3 letters in it, right? So it only makes sense. And instead of MM, we're going to use CVC. And the maximum value, because it's the maximum value would be, I don't know, 999, right? Because it's a 3-letter, it's a 3-digit number. So there we go, guys. We can see that there's a card number, and we can write our card number. And check this out. If I hit tab, I am immediately jumping to the month. So we can say, okay, December 2012. Okay, so and then 1, 2, 3, right? Okay, I have an issue here with the CVC. Max length would be 3. Guys, let's check that out. There we go. So one input, right, wrapped inside of an input group, and then we have 3 more inputs with a little separator, like a text here, and we have this whole component. It's pretty much ready, right? Awesome. With the tab, we can jump through it, and that makes using it even more faster. And awesome. Let's move on. What do we have next?
So since we're a little bit over time, should we say?
Oh yeah, I did.
yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
But it's if people want, we can maybe implement a specific one. But let's move to discussion. So
okay.
Because close to the end of the broadcast. So. So in Chakra, so how would you go with Figma and Chakra? So do you often make a design first in Figma and then redo it in Chakra, or do you have some kind of better way to do it? What's your workflow?
No, yeah, definitely. There's a Figma Ui Kit that implements all of the Chakra-based styles that you can use as just to duplicate it and start building your app on top of it. Because it has all of the components that the React framework has. It already has them in Figma, even the hover styles and everything, the pressed with all the states. So yeah, that's one way to go.
Yeah. So in essence, we could take the layout you had and then build it in Figma first, and then export to React. So that would be sort of Sounds good. Let's see if anyone has any questions. If there are no questions, I think we can wrap up. So for the next month, I think we do a demonstration of our online venue. So instead of doing a podcast, we take a tiny summer break and then do something else. But I will announce that in a separate time. But anything on mind, or I think people want to go to sauna? Yeah. Silence means no questions. So thanks a lot. It was great to have your demonstrations, and I hope we see in React Finland later this year. So thanks. Bye.
Thank you, guys.